Welcome, everyone, to the SAND event, Wisdom in Times of Crisis. We are reflecting on all of these changes and the opportunities this unique time is offering us. My name is Katie Gray, and I am here joined by David Cates, who is an incredible human being. He is a sorcerer of feeling and the ability to welcome people into a safe space of reconnecting with themselves, of reconnecting with one another. He has the frequency of a warm elder and father that has the ability to bring insight and connection. And he's been doing this for 40 years, helping change the world through bringing people together inside of themselves and outside of themselves. And he's also the creator of Belly to Belly, which essentially brings people together to reach deeper levels of intimacy and truth. I think, David, would you say truth? To be with
Yes.
the reality, the truth that we may be too intimidated to confront. And I'm completely, genuinely honored to be here interviewing you. I was recently sent your article from Zaya about death, and it blew me away. I've read it numerous times and I've cried every time, and I've sent it to numerous people, and I feel so excited. I want to stand out in the street with pamphlets and pass it out to people, because it feels like a necessary passage that we need to be speaking about. We need to talk about the fear that's really going on. What is really driving the anxiety and the concern right now? And what are we avoiding? And for how long have we been avoiding this transformation?
Oof.
It's big stuff. So I'd love to pass it over to you and call upon this incredible transformation that is happening through the truth being revealed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Katie. That was beautiful. I'm excited to see where this will go, because I know that you also are caretaking for your mother, and that's a scary thing to do in these times. For me, there was a passage that I went through personally in the last 4 years. I had the honor to sit with my sister and my mother as they each went through their death passage. And I had the time and the space to be there for months before, during, and after each one of those passages. And learned a lot, went through a lot. And when I came up from the underworld into what's happening here in our outer world, I couldn't help but see through that same lens and see a lot of the parallels of, oh my God, what we're doing, like what really worked with my mother was just being straight with her. That yes, you're dying. This is happening. This is going to happen next, and then we don't know. Probably this sequence will happen, and this is what we'll go through together. We'll be here with your family, and we'll go through this. And so there's a part of me that really learned the value, like, because I was straightforward and not bullshitting my mother, and not telling her, oh, don't worry, honey, it'll be okay. And we're going to go look at this doctor, and we're going to go try this thing. And then all these things are going to happen, and maybe you'll get better, and da 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 da. But just like, nope, it's your time, isn't it? And she'd say, yeah, I'm done. And just the being able to be in that experience with her, on that frequency with her, made a level of intimacy that I'm not sure I ever had with her. Maybe when I was a baby, before I remembered, but everybody else, or many of the other people in the family, were still in denial and grieving and angry, and this has to be different and all that. But just staying the course with, yes, this is what's happening, and we're going through it together. that made the difference. And when I come back up into this world, this beautiful world that we're in, that's kind of falling apart in ways that we acknowledge and don't acknowledge, the deeper I look into it, the more I explore what's really going on, the more I feel in my own body, in my own heart, and my own guts what's coming. I just want to say, this is a terminal situation. This is not time. It's too late for us all to like run out and buy land and start growing gardens and protesting against the surveillance state and, you know, trying to create an alternative economy and all that stuff. It's beautiful. Go for it if that's your dharma to do. But I really believe that there's something else going on here. There's an opportunity I would hate for us to miss, because I got to see with my sister and my mother the incredible transformative value of turning and facing death directly, not pussyfooting around, not pretending, not trying to make it different, just saying, yeah, this is what is right now. So it's helped for me by, you know, like I have many backgrounds, but one Buddhist background. It's like, yeah, yes, we're all going to die, and everyone you love, including you, will be forgotten. And that's the nature of this transient world. And so I have a spiritual foundation for that awareness too. But culturally, socially, economically, I just see it everywhere I look. It's like people are anxious underneath and pretending like we're going to go back to normal. And I think normal is broken.
Wow, normal is broken. It's interesting because I think it's possible that you may feel an apprehension to share this viewpoint, because so many view death as being a negative thing. They view it as being scary. It feels like, what a morbid way to look at things. Don't you want to stay optimistic? Like you're seeing this as doomsday. We need to keep holding on to hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I really hear where you're coming from. I feel the light in what you were suggesting and sharing, that, you know, as you're sharing this as well, it brings me to this place of thinking of our species as addicted. You know, you were saying we have to turn and look at the change. We have to be cracked open. It's almost as if we're addicted to being alive. And in that state of addiction, we're in an unconscious state. So there's this breaking open of reality and truth. And as you said, the death of your mother and your sister cracking you open, and in an experience that could have been so shattering and so negative and so scary, you looked at her and you explained to her, this is what's happening, and I'm not going to lie to you. This is what's happening. I'm not going to lie to you because I love you and because I have true hope and true trust. I don't want to be satisfied with a false sense of trust. I want us to find true trust and know that you're going to die right now, and you're doing such a good job. I think in your article that you recently wrote, this incredible article on death, you looked at her and explained she's dying so perfectly. She's doing it so beautifully. And I think, isn't that the way we're being shattered. Our normal is being shattered. How do we welcome the shattering and turn toward the shattering? Because as you were saying in your article, there's a death happening, you know. How does that feel for you to be someone that brings people together, to be so focused on intimacy and connection and love and optimism, and people probably lined up when they're scared and saying, please give me a sense of comfort and safety and tell me it's going to go back to normal? And what is that like for you to have to go? I don't know if your ego is challenged, or the construct of your story of who you represent to people. What is that like for you to have to go beyond the normalcy of what you provide, the comfort, and resonate with the truth that's undeniably coming through you, which is, I don't know if there is a normal, and I think it's about death, and I think we're going to go extinct soon, and I think that's okay. Like, that's your truth. So it doesn't need to be seen as good or bad, but how does that feel for you to be in a situation where your truth may not necessarily blend with what it used to be, or feel like it's going to necessarily bring people comfort?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for naming that, because this is a, a struggle that I've been in for for many months since. Well, so it began to come into form after the deaths, and it definitely, when COVID came through, it started screaming in my ears. And it's really hard, because the role that I have played, the function that I've had in society, is to be the wise elder and the good papa, and to help people heal from all their childhood wounds and traumas, and learn how to come back into their hearts and connect with each other and believe that they can do it, and all these things. So there's thousands of people who look to me for hope and guidance and support as they become more and more re-traumatized and re-triggered in these events that we're going through. So I've held back. It's not an accident that I'm in Mexico right now. I was being a tourist and decided to stay. And this is kind of like, I'm joking about, I'm having my winter hibernation and it's 90 degrees outside, but I'm hibernating. I'm like, I don't talk to very many people. I'm not doing very many interviews. I retired officially last year, and I don't know how to come out and say this is much deeper and more difficult than we're saying it is. And there's ways to get through it. There's medicine here and there's gold here. And in order to find that, we have to turn around and face it. We can't just be twiddling our thumbs and watching Netflix, waiting for everything to come back, because it's not going to.
Hmm.
So
Oof.
so whether, there's so many different layers of death, and maybe that's a way that I can nuance this for different people. There's the Buddhist way of death, just the realization that life is impermanent and we're all going to die. There's a way of looking at economically. I don't see how anybody can look at the US or the global economy and say we're going to be going back to normal when there's 30 million people out of work, and all these small businesses are going to fold up in the next couple months. All these things are going on economically. There's many people more than me who have been looking at the climate change, and we're in the sixth mass extinction. So you can look at the economy's in trouble. You can look at the society is in trouble. We can't talk to each other without screaming and disappearing into our little echo bubbles. You can look at the world and say, oh, look, you can see Los Angeles now because there's no smog. But, how bad things have been with the global warming and all of that. Everybody knows all those stories. I'm actually wondering about whether or not humanity has reached the end of the rope. And my specialty, like you say, has been intimacy and trauma and connection for 40 years. And I've seen over the decades more and more and more people in more and more and more trouble, sinking underwater, not feeling connected. The stats, you can go into a quarter of the people in the United States, 25% of the people in this country don't have anyone to talk to about major life decisions. They don't have anyone to talk to about, should I have this operation? Or should I try to retire early? Or should I have children? That's like the most basic level of connection, to have family and community to share your process with, of like, what should we do about these things? There's so many people who are so isolated they don't know how to connect yet. So I'm not feeling optimistic. I don't know if you're saying feeling pessimistic. I don't think that death is necessarily a bad thing. The two passages that I went through showed me, holy shit, this is like better than anything I could have imagined. My heart has cracked open in ways that it hadn't before, and that I couldn't imagine any other way that it could crack more.
Wow. I want to acknowledge the courage it takes to be honest, to when we are so attached to being and saying what we feel people want to hear in order to experience our own individual sense of connection, and the courage it takes on a primal level to potentially remove ourselves from the pack, to say something that won't lead to acceptance and won't lead to acknowledgement and won't fluff your ego and it won't ensure that you have connection in the future. It takes courage to be with your truth and to speak your truth and to be honest. So I very much praise and appreciate your honesty. It's interesting as you're speaking, I'm seeing this vision of we're all collectively in a state of trauma right now. You mentioned trauma. It's something you've worked with for 40 years. What's fascinating to me is that, and really inspired by what you're saying, it's my personal understanding that, we as a species have gone so far into the field of unconsciousness and unawareness. We've gone so far into the insatiable hunger because we've been so traumatized, because we never had someone to talk to, because people didn't feel comfortable asking big life decisions or talking about an abortion or talking about a divorce or opening up and going inside. People have been so intimidated to stay with the lids pulled down watching Netflix and staying distracted. Inside, I feel that everyone is so brokenhearted because of the pain that they've endured. So we're starting where we've got a large group of majority of a species that's brokenhearted. And then we're in a situation of actually experiencing trauma. Like we are in the blow, if trauma is a swipe, we are literally right here, right now. Like it's happening. Yeah. So, I'm in your work of 40 years. I want to touch in on something. Is it possible that the hope and the connection and the comfort and the positive experience that so many have gained from your work wasn't necessarily you it wasn't necessarily you telling them what they wanted to hear in order to give a momentary sense of feeling good? What you were encouraging everyone to do for the past 40 years was to look at the truth and to not be afraid of the trauma, to not be afraid of those tender, vulnerable areas that we avoid, like death, like pain, like abuse, like a virus that took over the world when at some point and you had to stay in your house and you were scared to go outside. Like, what a traumatic event. Is it possible that the work that's coming through now is actually still very much aligned with the work you've always been doing? Because what you were always doing was encouraging people to look at the truth. I mean, I'm curious if that's your work is still exactly as it always has been, what's coming through you. I think it's the necessary courage required to look at the truth and to bring people to a place where they're willing to go through their uncomfortableness to reach a place of truly being comfortable.
I just want to reach through the screen and kiss you right now.
I know, I feel you too. I've just been hugging you this whole time.
This is just, I had not even considered that. For me, it's been such helping people heal and now helping people like face death has seemed like a complete divide, a complete chasm to me. And yet it's absolutely true what you're saying, that the work that I've been doing for 40 years is to encourage people and show them how, and create the space and the tend to what the body needs in order to speak out, peek out through the trauma and say, I'm not perfect. I'm afraid that if you love me, I'll blow up or I'll hurt you. Or like all of the insecurities, all the thousands of things that people run in looping in their minds about how they're not going to get it and they can't connect and everyone will judge them and all this. And there are ways to reach through that. There are ways to feel solid enough, stable enough, held enough to speak the truth, to like the work that you do, to give voice to your truth. And that's so, it's so obvious to me that the deepest connections that people find is when they are sharing those horrors, those insecurities, those it'll never be good enough, those things that prevent them from really opening their hearts and reaching out. And so for me, this is indeed another step in the same journey. Not so much about let's open our hearts and speak clearly and honestly about what's going on and the fears that you're holding of your mother might get sick and die, or your partner might lose his job, or your children might not have a world to live in. Like these things that can be the basis, can be the ground for a different level of connection, a different dimension of connecting, where we're not just connecting with the superficial or even there's another layer below the superficial that we share with our dear friends. And then there's another layer that we're just like, holy shit, if I ever say this, I don't know what will happen. Like the bottom will fall out of my life. These kinds of things are what we're being guided towards right now. We're in our own little silos. We're having our own private little experiences. It's exacerbated for many people by literally being alone in their homes or wherever they are. Some people aren't even in their homes. And I just feel like there's something that's available here for us to step out of isolation, step out of fear, step out of, am I doing it right? Will you love me? And step into what I could only call communion. Like all the intimacy work that I've done is to help people drop deep enough into themselves so that they can feel, oh, when I go down to the roots, we're all one. That like we're connected already. It's not an action we need to do out here. The deeper I breathe into my body and the more I tell you what's going on for me, the more we find out, hey, we're on the same ride. We're humans. We're like in this experience together. And doing this in the framework of love and intimacy is one thing. And now there's another framework here that we have the possibility of dropping into, which is considering all of our conflicted feelings about what if this is the end? What if we're not going to make it out of here alive? What if even, like millions or billions of other people die and I survive? Like, it's not a world of normal I'm going back to. So how do we start, and I believe too, I believed my whole life that the way out of this is through connection and communion. It's to step out of our misapprehension that we're separate and step into the truth that we're innately bonded together. We come from the same place, we're going to the same place. The similarities are so much deeper than the differences. And I just, I want to hold that as, for me, like, why turn and face death? Why not just, hope that something's going to change, or some savior is going to come, or the ETs are going to drop down, or Bill Gates is going to fix everything, something's going to happen. It's like, why should we turn away from those possibilities and say, wow, I'm just going to sit for a minute and really feel, hey, what if this is the end?
Mm.
And what does that open up between you and me if you sit in that possibility too, and just take a pause? We're in a sacred pause. We're in a months-long sacred pause. And if we can do this with each other, to just say, what if this is it? What if this is the end? Like, what do you want to do now? Like,
Mm.
what kind of conversation do you have? What do you want to do in the world? Like, oh my God, the sunlight is so beautiful. It's not like turning into the hell realms and feeling horror for the rest of your life. It's so incredibly beautiful to just let go, to let go of all of our certainty, to let go of all the things we feel, the ways that we're separate, or that it can't work, or I won't be saved, and just drop into, I don't really know.
Mm.
You too? You don't really know? Wow, we've got like common ground here now. This is powerful. We're finding something that's deeper than you or me. We're feeling into something that is foundational for all of us. And that's the level we're going to need to get to make any changes at all of any significance. It can't just be, how am I going to position myself so I get my check and then I find another way to get work? It's like that world is over.
Mm.
How do we come into oneness?
Wow. David, how did that feel? That feels like feels like your purpose is shining through bright and clear. Feels like
Thank
your
you.
work is
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
The
any
force is strong in
division.
that one.
I don't feel any division in the work you've always led to the work that's coming through you now. I think it's just become more potent, and it's shining through much stronger. And what I'm hearing you say is, go beyond hope. Find the knowing. Go beyond hope, because hope is still a level of attachment. You still have a desired outcome if you're hoping for ... And you're saying, we don't know. Embrace the unknown. Do the real work. And I'm also hearing you say, be courageous enough to be vulnerable. If you're scared, you don't need to download another Netflix channel and find a different one. You don't need to, if you're feeling anxiousness, to scan through your emails and see if your check arrived, or find out if your neighbor is going to be needing extra help. And I hear you saying presence. I hear that shining through each of your words is, have the courage to be honest, to reach out, to connect with others, to speak your truth, to be vulnerable, to say, I'm scared. I'm scared we won't have enough money. I'm scared that I don't know what the future holds. And then to challenge yourself to be with that unknown, to say none of us know what the future holds. And we never will. We never have. It's all been just this beautiful mirage that we've been projecting, like hoping. Yes. And I also am hearing you say that, that level of unconsciousness is what got us into this mess. It's what made us not feel all of the trees that were being cut down. It's what makes us not feel what the animals that are going extinct and all of the children that are dying of starvation. It's what makes us not feel. And it's a time to feel, to find courage to be honest, and to feel and to be present. And I think your medicine is more potent than ever. I think you're challenging us to go deeper and to look beyond the facade of fear and pandemic and chaos, and peer into the sun shining down to the moment that we will lose if we distract ourselves and avoid the truth of what's really going on. What are tools that you think that could potentially apply for this time period that you've learned over the years that just help people be more comfortable with the uncomfortable?
Thank you. That's a beautiful question. If I look back at what I've done, the strategies, the exercises, the practices, the tools, I would say the most important thing is to begin to speak the truth. Even if the first truth is, I don't know. I don't know what my truth is. I don't know what I feel. I'm afraid to feel. I don't want to think about all those children who are dying in the third world. I don't want, I can't. Like, just to start with, this is my truth right now. And then the second thing, there's a phrase we used to use, I'm letting you know, and I'm letting it go. So I'm telling you my truth, and I'm not using it to like build a position. I'm not using it to get stuck in. I'm just saying, I'm taking my first step, and my first step is I'm scared. I feel uncertain. I don't think I can do this. So cool, stand on that rock in the middle of the stream. Stand on that rock, just let it be what it is, and then look around. If I let go of that, if I'm willing to take my foot off this position, what's another place I can put my next foot step? Oh, okay, over here, then maybe I'm a little afraid that you'll judge me because I don't really care about all those children dying in India. So I'm afraid to let you know that. And then, okay, we've taken another step. Now I'm on another rock in the stream. You've come a little bit closer to me. We're sharing a deeper level of truth. And will I be willing to let you know and let that one go too? And then what can happen? Like, we keep going one step at a time. And I open up and take a step. You open up and take a step. And then we are calibrating to each other. There's a shared level of risk. There's a shared level of we're rebalancing with each other. We're checking each other out. A lot of the work has been about, I tell you something that's a little bit scary that activates my nervous system or my traumas, and then we just pause and take 3 deep breaths together. And when we do that, we sink below the level of the mind, below all the fears. And even the 3 deep breaths can be, I take a deep breath into my heart. And then I go a little deeper. I take a deep breath into my belly. And together, we're taking a deep breath into the pelvis and the root. And just doing that simple 3 deep breaths together is enough to rebalance us. And the parts of my nervous system that are afraid of the response that I'll get, the parts that are traumatized and disconnected, they feel the reassurance of, You're still with me. You haven't gone away. You're not tensed up to hit me. We're just breathing together. We're in this moment together. So right here, right now, in this moment, this is the truth that we're sharing. And we've taken this step, and would you like to take another step? How about we could go a little bit deeper, and I could tell you a little bit more about what's going on in me, because I trust you a little bit more now. And I trust myself a little bit more now. And I'm finding my voice, and it's not as scary as I thought it was going to be.
Oh, wow. We have a time for one more question.
Okay.
What is something that could plant a seed of inspiration, or an intention? Maybe just an intention. Like, what would be a good intention for people to hold in their hearts? Do you have any ideas what that might be?
Yeah. There's a line from T.S. Eliot that's been floating through my head. It's like something about give up hope, because hope would be hope for the wrong thing.
Mm.
Hope would be hope for the wrong thing. So the state of consciousness that we're in right now, this separation, this isolation, this have to take care of myself, this I have to be afraid of death, have to change the world, this state of consciousness is hoping for the wrong thing. It's coming from separation. And so it can only, the only fruit that can come from separation is more separation. No matter how pure and heartfelt your hopes are, if you're coming from a me, you're creating more little individual me's. And so I feel like if there's another dimension to this, the death friendship, making friends with death, is that there's dimensions of connectedness. There's dimensions where everything I've ever been has rippled out through the field and now lives in the hearts and minds and memories of other people, of the trees, of the soil, of the passing clouds. It's like it's been shared and it's been received and it's being held. And this level of awareness of how we're connected, that we don't think about when we're in our busy workaday world, when we're trying to sort out our relationship, when we're trying to do all these things, we completely miss. It's like our eyes are focused on the wrong part. And what happened for me was when I turned and faced death and went through that with my sister and went through that with my mother, I found layers and layers and layers of history and time and lineage and future and eternal now that I was blind to when I was just like, oh, no, we're going to get you to the doctor and then we're going to get this medicine and da, 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 da. It's like that fell away, and inside the let go, inside the hopelessness, inside the heart breaking open, was finally space to feel and be aware of how much life does matter, how much we mean to each other, how we're all in this journey together, and how none of us is going to get out of here without everybody. We're all linked on the deepest levels of soul. And the way to find that is not to be playing around in the world of separation, but to drop into heart and pain and death. And that's where we find the truth.
David, that was so beautiful. Just so, so beautiful. I feel so excited to read your next book.
Well, I must
Oh,
say you've given me some courage to actually write some more
you
and
avoided saying
actually
hope.
it's not hope. It's like,
I
oh
know.
yeah, I could see the through line here. And maybe it's not just, oh, here comes Debbie Downer talking about, yeah, it's the end of the world and the extinction of the human race. Anybody else want to come along and play? It's like there's more here. Yeah, thank you for shining a light on all that.
Oh yeah, I see so clearly you igniting your purpose, and with the death of your mother and your sister having been initiated into your higher purpose,
Mm,
and in a way like never before. Now your ego's fully dropped off. You are no longer afraid, and I'm so curious to see what happens next.
yeah, me
Um,
too.
and next time I come to San Miguel, I'm going to track you down. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sand family and community, for joining us. Thank you, David, for this beautiful, beautiful sharing. And yeah, we'll have a link to the video. And if anyone has not read his article, his passage on death, it's available on your website. Is that correct?
It's on the Sand website, actually. It's time to stop avoiding death.
Time to stop avoiding death. So so important and so true. Thank you so much, and
Mhm.
we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Katie. It's beautiful sharing
Thank
this with
you.
you. Mhm.